Time for some more level mapping in Photoshop. So marquee tool, same one I got here. And just using the marquee drag with shift held so I get the plus key and making a little structure out of the marquee tool. And make sure I'm on a new layer, Control Shift N. Remember, if you want to move that around while still on the marquee tool, you can. And we want to fill with the foreground color. Let's go D, default. So default's going to have the black on the foreground, white on the background. And then that's Alt Delete to fill with the foreground and Control Delete to fill with the background. So we'll leave it a little darker here. Once I've done that, if I want to deselect, Control D, V to move. If I have the move set to auto select, and if I want to take away, I could just carve in with these shapes here and move this around, and I can move that wherever I need it to go. Whoops. And just hit the delete key. So this is just a quick recap. If while I'm moving, I can hold down the spacebar, get into position, then let go of spacebar and continue the move. There we go. So hopefully you're able to come up with, look at that 121 spaces, your team, if you're just brainstorming on your own and trying to think of some interesting places you might make. Or you could just freeform the whole thing to start with and just kind of have fun with it. So I'm just kind of carving these out. If I have anything that's too thin, I could delete that. And if I have anything that maybe I want a little bit thicker, I can just go in here and Alt Delete. And doorways and things like that, windows, you can do whatever you like for that. But let's just continue with the marquee. So Shift and then M is going to switch to circular marquee, right? So I go to M, and then Shift M. Oops, let me get out of that. There we go. Now it's an ellipse, and as I pull the ellipse, Shift to make it symmetrical, and then while I'm holding Shift, I can do spacebar, get it into the right position I want, bring it onto the front here, and then let go of Shift position. And once I'm done, let go. If I want to take away from that, Shift M again, back to ellipse, and then Alt to take away, and then I can do like a half moon shape. And Alt Delete, fill with that. To move any of these pieces around, just marquee drag around the piece that you want it to grab, and then switch to the move tool, and that'll automatically switch it to scissors, and now you're moving just that piece. It's still in the same layer. You just selected the piece within the layer, and you're moving it around. And you can also hit Control T is your transform, so you can rotate it around. You zoom in Z, and you should be able to scrub back and forth. And we can always flip that back and forth this way. We can hold down Control and do a control point and skew it that way. Most of these tools are available if you just right click inside the free transform tool. There's your scale, rotate, distort, and warp is super useful as well. Warp gives you full control handles of the grid here if you need to adjust the shape. Escape out of that. Okay, the other walls and pieces you might make in here, you're thinking about how the player pathing is going to work, and we'll get into the pathing theory. So I'm just kind of keeping some open areas. Anytime you want to pop an area through to make a passageway, just marquee drag across and delete. The other thing you could do is start thinking about your doors, walls, windows, things like that. Anything that might let you see line of sight or allow for player movement. But I think player movement is first, and then line of sight can come a little bit later. So if you want to make a particular door, let's do a key. So Control Shift and new layer, and we'll go doors, ramps, windows, things like that. Maybe put it in its own group. Control G on that layer, open up the group, and we'll call this the key. Key or legend. So we'll do one up here, and just kind of block this out, and click inside the foreground color, and just do a different color for it this time. Maybe something that I'm just going to stand off against the gray a little bit. And make sure I'm on the layer itself, not the group. There we go. Well, that was really light. Remember, Control U is my quick adjustment for making something lighter or darker. And give it a layer style. So right click. It doesn't like the right click on my stylus, just some blending options. And the one we've been using so far is stroke, and putting the stroke on the outside, whatever pixels make sense. You could play around with some other settings, but just giving it an outline is helpful. And then inside of this now we can go into the type tool, which is T, which we haven't used yet. And you can just click and drag inside here. Same thing, hold down Shift if you need to position it a little closer to the edges. It has some pretty good auto snapping built into Photoshop these days. There we go. The lorem ipsum. Our alignment's over here, so I'll align it to the left. And we're going to drop our points down to something reasonable. And I'm working on a high resolution image, so these pixel sizes for the type might be a little off for right now. Move that over so I have enough room to put the icons on there. There we go. And we'll start off at the top, maybe in caps, and we'll go map key. And let's make sure we got the color that's going to actually be legible. There we go. We'll go door. Window. Elevator. Ramp. And what other things might be in here? So those would be kind of the movement in area. We could also do interactive elements. So we'll do pickup A, pickup B, trap 1, trap 2, trap 3, lots of traps on this one. Go alarm triggers. You do enemy patrol. Enemy guard. And enemy, let's see, let's start there. Okay, so each of these pieces the wonders of computers. I'm back. Okay. The door itself, let's just do a little emblem here for the door, a little square, and we'll hop into the colors here. And let's where we start maybe color coding some things. So maybe green, something greenish to indicate that you can go through that area. So Alt delete with that. And then each of these could use layer style as well on there if we wanted to, but we'll just kind of do the elevator and the ramp. The ramp, I'm going to go to L to polygonal lasso tool, right? So we could do like a ramp up or ramp down symbol. So I'll just do like a little skewed piece here. Hold down Shift if you want to be straighter. Tap and then let go. Go across and then close that up. Alt delete. And I did have these on their own layer. Let me go back and make sure I put these on their own layer. Nothing on there. There we go. And let's fill that again. Control D to deselect. An elevator. Excuse me, I have the ramp in mind, so we'll do the ramp first. It's like a cone. Delete. And then if the side's uneven over, just use the marquee tool, drag across, and just clip that off a little bit. What would make a good elevator shaft symbol? Go back to my brush here and go back to D for just a moment. And got these a little tight. So the old ladder up, ladder down from D&D is pretty useful. So just a little symbol here. Maybe something like that. And then for the ramp right here, I'll just do some lines. And that could be stairway up and stairway down. That's usually stairway down. And if I click here, hold down Shift, tap, and I can go around. Symbol there. Same thing on the door here. Just give it a little outline. And then for the this will be ramp down, and then we'll do another one here, ramp up. So I'll just kind of finish this off. There we go. So if I want to go back into the type tool, I can just go, that's ramp down and ramp up. There we go. And that should give us enough now. Maybe within the ramp here. It would make sense. Let me go back up in here and cut that out, and then you fill that in with the same green that I've been using. Oops. Looks like I lost that, so I just go to eyedrop, pick that color, go back, and then Alt Delete for it. And then Control V, paste that back. There we go. That into position. I need to zoom in. Nothing too precise just yet, but it doesn't hurt to even stuff up a little bit. And then remember, Control E is to drop this piece of the layer down onto this bottom part of the layer. So I'll just go Control E, drop that down. So ramp up, ramp down. And for the pickup A and pickup B, let's color code those. So let's do blue for something good you want to pick up, and red for something bad that could hurt you, right? So I'll just go pick up. We'll do a square pickup and go into the color picker here, and we'll keep it on the same saturation level. I'll use HSB. And for the hue though, we could switch it over here, and it's going to keep the same muted color palette, which makes it a little bit easier on the eyes. You could saturate a little more if you go to saturation here, turn it up a little bit, and if you want to make it a little bit brighter to show up on screen, this is where you want good contrast for the interactive elements of your map, right? There we go. So make sure I'm on the same layer, blue, fill that in, and then go down here, and then maybe do a circle. So just pull that, shift to get it the right evenness, and then spacebar. And then if you want to be a little bit different, maybe a slightly different blue, so just go to the hue, expand here, and then maybe push it over towards purple, something like that. So that should stand out nicely. For the traps, we'll go in here and do the polygonal lasso tool again. So we'll do a triangle, and then same thing, go in here to the hue saturation value, spin that over to maybe like a bright red, Alt Delete, fill with that, go back to the marquee tool, circle, go, pick a different color, maybe we'll go like bright orange, and then back to Shift M for the square marquee. Make sure we get about the right size there. There we go. And so we got red, orange. We'll go, don't want to go too close to green. Make sure we're getting something different here. Okay, Alt Delete. Okay, so for all of these, I did do a outline on the green, but I forgot to mention what I was going to show you how to drop the layer styles. So Control Shift and do a new layer below it. So if you have layer styles on something, I'm going to do that for all the little icons we just made. Right click, and we're going to go to the blending options, which brings you to layer styles. I don't know why they don't just call it layer style from the menu. The stroke here, click on that one time. There you go. Now you got a nice little border on there, and you see it's 4 pixels, and it's on the outside. So if you do it on the inside, it gets cluttered. It kind of will constrict the icons sometimes, but sometimes that's what you want. When you're doing walls, I usually leave the strokes on the outside, but for icons and things like that, we don't want them to get out of hand and too big. So once that's done, if I want to copy and paste some of this, let's say, okay, I want to now breadcrumb around some pickups, right? Or add some doors here. So I'm going to go over to my map key. I'm going to marquee across the door, Control C copy, and then Control V. Let's go out of the key to a new one. Control Shift N, new layer. Whoops, drag outside of that key group, and Control G, and we'll call this interactive elements. All right, interactive elements. And now we have that layer we're going to copy from the icons here. So I'll just call this icons. And then Control C, and then go up to my interactive elements layer, and then Control V and paste it in there. And take that move tool, and you'll see, oops. And you'll see what happens is it got the line that I had on there earlier, but not the line from the layer style. So this would be door, right? So we'll go door. Control J to duplicate the layer I already have, door. Right, okay, we'll go back down here for something that's a little bit more obvious. So let's grab trap number 1. So we go in here, use V, tap one time, and that'll take us, make sure we're on the right layer. Control C, go back up here to interactive elements, Control V, and see if I move that around, see the layer style's gone. You can't copy and paste layer styles from other layers. So I'll show you how to get that to where you can copy and paste the layer style so that all the work we did on the icons actually shows up when we move it around the map. We go down here to the key icons, it's all these, and we have that new layer below it down here, and you just drop the layer to the one below it. So the right click on that is merge down. But what I like to use is Control E, which will drop a layer to the that you have selected onto the layer below it. So real easy to remember. Now if I go back up here, I'm on the icons layer. Remember, if you just want to hop to a layer, just use the move key with auto select on. Marquee drag, select around there, copy, go up to your interactive elements, Control V, paste. And now you'll see the dark outlines around it. If I go to move, it is now part of that layer. Now we don't have to keep going back down to copy and paste. Once you have one put up in your interactive elements, you just duplicate that layer somewhere. So let me delete that. There we go. And let's put some interactive on. So trap number 1 is behind door number 1 or door number 2. Maybe it's in front of the door. So there's a trap in front of the door there. Control J, replicate it, and another one behind the door over there. All right, let's get a few more of these. So far these are traps. And the reason I'm doing the work on this now is because we can duplicate this map key and make like 5 more maps, and we don't have to duplicate this again. And it becomes really useful, and we could just go in and just reuse this map key for several different things actually. And so definitely reuse icon stuff that works, blending style layers. You know, how many different ways can you do a circle, square, and a triangle, right? I mean, you can come up with a bunch of different ways, but at the end of the day, you don't really need to, because you're just trying to quickly decide where you want these to go. The other thing you can do on here is to do your trailing for the player pathing. So for that, we go to the brush tool, take any brush tip shape you want. So let's see what I have here. I have a circle and a square tip. So the circle square is going to be, let's call that the primary path. Let me turn off the shape dynamics for that, and we'll just space it out a bit more like that. There we go. And for the player pathing, we'll use maybe 2 different tones. So right now we've kind of done some brighter colors for things. So let's do something like just a white. Now we could do the layer style on the player pathing as well. So we'll use white little circles for the player movement. So we have interactive elements. Let's do another layer on top of that, and we'll call this player pathing. Take the player pathing out and Control G, put it in its own group, and we call that pathing. So player pathing group, interactive elements group, and a key. That's the standard parts you would most likely need. So let's give this a shot. So remember, you have to be in the layer, not in the group if you want to draw anything. There we go. I have a nice little trail on there. So same thing, we can go in here and bring up the layer styles to blending options. And as we draw the little dots on there, let's give it a stroke of just maybe a few pixels. So remember, I'm on like a 3,000 or 4,000 pixel dock. So these values are going to change. I'd recommend just using like 1,200 or 2,000 pixel, but I already kind of started, and it's too thick on there. So zoom in, do my brush size, and yeah, let's look at the strokes probably on the inside. Usually I think we'll remember what you did last time. So the stroke is indeed on the inside. So that's why I was talking like in crowd, the image you have on there, right? So let's show you what that looks like. So if I hold down, remember, as I do the stroke, if I hold down shift, it'll do a straight line for me. And if I keep shift held down and I keep tapping, I can just do, it'll connect in between button presses, or you can like restart your by touching and letting go and then touching again. The whole time I have shift held down, right? So let me undo those. Okay, so I go back into the layer style now and just double click the FX. And instead of having the stroke on the inside, which covers up the white from the brush press, let's do it on the outside. And there you go. Now you have a very clear representation of that icon, and it automatically does a circle with an outline built in. Pretty cool. So let's go in here and we'll put, hold down spacebar, bring it over, and we'll go down to the, we'll just leave that for right now. Actually, we just hit Control A to select all and then hit delete. You see the marching ants will, when you do Control A, select all, it'll select the entire canvas for you. Control D to deselect. And then move tool, we'll go back down to the key here, automatically pops up. We'll go to the icons and go to my brush tool and the circles here, and we'll just do one press across right here. Looks like maybe it wants to use the, yeah, if we want to use the layer styles, have to do its own layer. So Control Shift N. If we like the layer style from up here, we just right click on the layer style from there, and we can copy the layer style and then go back to the new one we're going to do down on the map key, right click and paste the layer style. And before I do that, let's go into the text tool here and make sure we have enough space for what we're doing. So I think maybe I'll make these a little bit smaller for what I'm doing here, so that way we have more room inside the map key. And we'll go primary path, primary layer path. Go secondary path and tertiary. So rule of three is easy to follow. Makes our job a bit easier. You may have to go in after that, go into the move tool, and try and get outside. Here's the icons from before, Control T, and just scale those down so that they fit the typography that we have on there. Okay, that's done. Go ahead, and if you need to move them, zoom in here. You just grab the marquee tool and grab V, the move tool, and just use the arrow keys, and you can adjust them around a little bit. Control D, M, marquee drag, grab the pieces, switch to V, and use the arrow keys. Shift will move them faster as you hit the arrow keys. Okay, you can just grab and move them with your mouse pointer too, and then Control D. All right, Now let's go to those player paths. I didn't do enemy patrol or alarm trigger yet. It's okay. But we want to make sure we get the paths on there. So we got the circle as the primary path. So let's click one time and then stroke across. There we go. That's the primary path. And then I thought I had it as pure white. Let's go D for default. So it goes back to default black and white. And then X swaps foreground and background color. Let's go with a nice bright white that will show up on there. And then for the next one, we have the arrows or the square tip shape. We'll space it out with the square. Shoot, that I already undid that one. Let's make sure this one works still. A little smaller. I think that's gonna work. Let's see, let's zoom out. Yeah, that'll work pretty well. So once we get the brush that we like, right here's a little plus sign right below it. And from there we can go create new brush. So create the new brush, primary path brush. Nice. 2560. What? Capture the brush size in the preset if you want to keep the actual size of the brackets at 20. And if it has color, oh, we can include color now. Oh, don't remember that before. So that's going to work for that particular circle brush. So that was one we had a moment ago. Here's the other newer one. So let's go to the square and let's make it a little bit smaller as a secondary path. And let's space that one out quite a bit as well and do that one. So remember, this is on the same layer style effect that it's doing. And for the color on this one, let's see, which color did we not use yet? I felt like we already jumped in and used most of the colors. We'll go with the, we'll go with like a lime green, brighter green color, something like that. I don't think that's going to get too confused with the doors. Maybe make it maybe slightly blue-green like we're doing with some of the graphic design. There we go. Okay, that'll work. Maybe a little bit smaller. There we go. And go to your key. Make sure you're on the key layer here. Click one time, hold down shift, slide it across. There you go. There's your secondary path. And then for the brush, go click on the new icon, include the color, include the size, include it in the tool settings, hit OK. And you'll see now that is saved as a different square brush right here. The next one I had here was a little like asteroids ship symbol, little arrow. You can just, if you want to, just go into your polygonal lasso, click, click, click a shape that you like. Remember, enter will finish the shape off. Fill with, so let me go to a new layer here because I'm just going to delete this layer. And fill it with black. So I'll delete. I'm going to make sure that there isn't any background gray, just pure black and white if we can. Maybe need one more layer below it. Yeah. So below that, going to go D for default and make a little square behind it and fill that with white. Okay, so this is going to make a custom brush tip shape. So I'm going to go to my marquee select tool. So again, I have one layer above it that's got the little sharp kind of arrowhead shape on top of it, and just put a white background behind it. When you make a brush tip, you want it, if you want this to fill in, you want it pure black, and then the background, so it doesn't fill in, should be pure white. Go to my marquee tool, shift drag so it's an even square. So that's going to be your brush tip shape. You're making a custom brush. Go up to the edit palette and define brush preset. There's presets, and there we go. Define brush preset. Click that one time, and we'll call this player path direction because it has a arrow pointing. 01. Oops. Hit OK. I'm not sure how that got gray on me. Did I hit something on accident? Control D. So that gray is going to be a problem. It's not going to fill in all the way. So let me hold down Control Tap one time and okay, I had my shortcut key to pause OBS. Shift F and Shift 3 actually does something in Photoshop, which of course it does. I should have known better. All right, no problem. I'll just do it manually. So marquee drag across there. I did drop the black arrowhead down to the white background. So you see this is one layer right here. So that way the first define brush preset was light gray, and I'll show you the difference there. So we go to edit, define brush preset, and we'll call this player path. It doesn't give you any reading of the names of the previous ones. So you have to have the brushes, which is F5. You want that showing there. So player path direction 2. All right, great. There it is. And so when I'm done with that, I can just delete that. Whoops. Control D and then just delete that layer. We don't need that anymore. And then we'll go back here. Yeah, I started putting it on there and I realized I had made it gray somehow. Okay, back onto a fresh empty layer. There you go. So yeah, you'll see it's filling in with the foreground color like a brush. So there it goes. And then the other gray one here is doing something similar, but not what we want, right? So let's go and fix those. And okay, so I discovered the shift and the numerical keys, which was my shortcut keys for OBS to pause and start and stop, actually do the fill opacity. I'm sorry, not the opacity over here, but the fill layer percentage. So each time I hit Shift 4, it dropped the fill down to 40%, or Shift 3 would drop it down 30%. So yeah, lesson learned, but now this should be working. Let's give this arrow a shot. So if I go, it's gonna make it like smeary arrow. But what you want to do for your directional arrows is to go over here to the shape dynamics, turn that on, and from the angle jitter, you want to turn that to direction. So whatever direction that you move this arrow, it's going to follow the direction of your stylus or your mouse. And that's really cool. It looks very feathery. I like it. Just got a new idea for making a large feather brush. You can also play with the shape dynamics, the size jitter set to pen pressure. So that way it will go from thin to thick. So if you have your stylus and your drawing tablet handy, you can go in here and just press really lightly and then press harder and then lighter again. And then that's pretty nice like that. Lots of fun stuff to play with custom brushes, but let's finish up making the brush we need for the path. So for the path, what we need, let me go ahead here and save this out. We don't need color for that one. We do want to include the tool settings, and we do want to capture the brush size in the preset. And that one we don't need. We'll just call this arrow feathers, something like that. All right, so let's switch that out then. We don't want pen pressure, so I'll turn that back off again. We do want the direction to be part of the angle jitter. But we do need to switch the size out, the spacing. So let's space these way out. There we go. Something like that. And you can even play with the how the alpha is treated. So you could squish the alpha down right here, which is kind of fun. And you keep the arrow. And you can even play with how it stacks and what direction it goes in. So this one we want to keep straight, but it definitely becomes useful every now and then to have that option available. So right about there we go. And so for the direction for the player pass, let's go down here to tertiary. And since you can see it's going to be a bit bigger, so maybe right about there, maybe a little bit smaller. Oops. There we go. And then make sure we're on the same layer that has the style still on the effect. And then hold down Shift, Tap one time, hold down shift, and just draw across. And you can see that is a bit ugly with the stroke angle on there. So let's go back into the stroke. Just double click the effects on there. Go to the stroke, make sure it is on the outside. Let's drop it way down to like 1 or 2. Whoa, 121, 2 pixels. And see, overprinting. Okay, so that's just the nature of the beast for that particular arrow. It might not work well for how we squished it. So the pixels get too thin when you're doing an effects layer. So just be aware that that's can happen. And make that a bit bigger. See if it's. Oh, I have black on. That's why. All right. My mistake. Okay, good. So maybe that'll work better. Yeah, not a problem. I just thought I was made some kind of boo boo. But the only boo boo I made was I had a white switch in the foreground, or a black, excuse me, and then it wasn't showing up. There we go. Okay, so you have the arrow now, and you can see it's tilted just slightly down. So if you wanted to bring it back up again and then try again, that'll actually play it out. And then if we wanted to give it a particular color, we had the white, we had the light green. So we'll go up here for like super light blue, something like that, and then give it a shot. And it's still not that light. Let's see what's going on here. Into the effects. And the stroke is on the outside. Doesn't affect the color too much. Okay, it's just a really light blue color. And on the outside, blending mode's on normal, opacity. Yeah, I think that's just the nature of the beast in making a stroke that thick. So we'll drop it down maybe to 2. And hit OK. Maybe make a new style out of that if you want to. We'll call this player pathing. There we go. Hit OK with that one. And then let's make the new brush. And we'll call that player pathing direction 3. And it's ready to rock and roll. Let's see if how that looks. Not bad. Okay, grab the marquee tool. Anything outside, hit delete. And browsing libraries. Yeah, no, thank you. Okay, so there's all the pieces we had for the pathing. And we have a blank layer above it. So if we want to get rid of any of the strokes or information on there, we can get rid of it. I'm just going to leave it for now. I'm going to call this the pathing. There we go. And the key, so the whole key's right there still. I can bring that back over out of the way a little bit and can zoom back out again. Okay, that is going to give us a lot of options being able to make this key. So if the key, now we can adjust the size and where everything's at in here. So if I go to the move tool, V, I can use my arrow keys and kind of adjust how everything's setting inside of there. But that's good for now. Let's go ahead and so come up with some map ideas, come up with a key, and then we'll go and do some quick dynamic pathing after we come